we have an absolute massive report that is coming out. Apparently, LeBron James is going to start to get some work on the court, and he will be practicing with the South Bay Lakers. This report here came from JJ Redick specifically. As he was talking about Nick Smith Jr. yesterday, Kobe Price tweets it out. As part of a response to a question about Nick Smith Jr., JJ Redick threw it in there that LeBron James will practice with the South Bay Lakers today. This tweet came yesterday, and there was some clarification on this. Kobe puts it out there saying LeBron didn't actually practice with the South Bay Lakers today, but the current plan is for him to do that at some point this week. So LeBron James will get work with the South Bay Lakers. And we knew this was a possibility given the timeline we were kind of given just a couple days ago about LeBron James. We knew that LeBron James at some point had to practice, right? He really has not practiced. He missed pretty much most of training camp with the back injury. And we knew that at some point for him to fully get healthy, he'd have to practice. And given that the Lakers are on a 5-game road trip, it really didn't make sense in terms of that timeline. So, of course, LeBron James will now work with the South Bay Lakers. And I think this is a really good spot for the Lakers to kind of be in. You know, the Lakers are a phenomenal basketball team. I think they're one of the best teams. I do think they need to make some changes, which we will talk about, because there's been some potential trade targets, right? Like there's some teams that are interested apparently in like Austin Reaves and Rui Hachimura. But there's also been some guys linked to the Lakers. And I do think it makes the Lakers better if they are able to make some moves. But of course, LeBron James coming back will be the very first step for the Lakers to figure out what the rotation is going to look like. Now, when LeBron James does come back, I think one of the things we're going to see is he'll obviously be inserted into the starting lineup. And Rui Hachimura, who's been playing the 4 right now, I think will get pushed into that 3 spot. And I think at that point, the natural rotation will just be, Marcus Smart will come off the bench at that point. Austin Reaves, Luka Doncic, Rui Hachimura will play that 3. And, I think Rui starts, obviously, and then with LeBron, and then you get DeAndre Ayton. That gives the Lakers a really good starting lineup, in my opinion. It's one of the best starting lineups. You have pretty much every aspect across the court covered. Maybe they're lacking a little bit in the athleticism department with those 5 guys out there, but there's guys that can come off the bench, and you can always make some trades as well, which we will talk about. But again, just getting LeBron James back, I think, is huge for the Lakers. Right now, the Lakers are, they're able to score a lot of points. They've struggled in certain games with like hustle, with defense, and they struggled a little bit yesterday as well against the Hornets. Right? I think they gave up 63 points in the first half to the Charlotte Hornets, and I think the first quarter specifically ended up, the Hornets ended up scoring like 40 points. Getting LeBron James back, I think, helps you a little bit, even on the defensive side, right? This is a guy that can control, which guy's covering who. He's smart. He'll play good defense himself. He'll block shots. I know he's about to turn 41 years old, but he can still block shots. We saw that last year at the end of the season, in which he made, key blocks at the end of that season. But LeBron's back. Excited to kind of see what the Lakers look like as they go forward. He'll get some work in at some point this week. There's also a report that's kind of coming out, and I want to kind of just get into this because this does, some people are saying the Lakers should be calling the Sacramento Kings. Apparently, this is coming out from Carmichael Dave. The Kings are reportedly gearing up for a full rebuild and plan to explore trades for Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis, and DeMar DeRozan, and others per Carmichael Dave. So I want to talk about this, right? So obviously the Sacramento Kings are looking to potentially start this rebuild. This is a team that 5 years ago had De'Aaron Fox, they had Tyrese Halliburton. They had some of these young players, and they looked really, really, really good. And of course, they made some changes. They made some trades. Halliburton ends up getting traded. They thought Sabonis would be the guy to kind of take them over the top. That never really worked out. Fox gets traded. You bring in Zach LaVine. You bring in DeRozan, and it just hasn't really worked out for the Kings at this point, right? So a full rebuild, I think, does make sense. And some people are saying the Lakers should be calling the Sacramento Kings. And I know, I understand you're within the same conference, and oftentimes trades like that don't necessarily happen. But if you're the Kings and you're saying, hey, we need to get into this full rebuild, we want to look to potentially start over, it would make sense to trade some of your best players. Now, I don't think a guy like Zach LaVine makes sense for the Lakers. And I know some people are saying the Lakers should be calling about a guy like Zach LaVine. LaVine is still only 30, so he can still play a lot of good basketball. I understand he does, he is athletic, and he does bring some athleticism to the Lakers, but you also got to realize the Lakers have already guys to score points. They already have an Austin Reaves. They already have Luka Doncic. They have LeBron. They have Marcus Smart, who kind of plays that similar position to Levine. And I think for the Lakers, the one thing that they're missing is athleticism when it comes to their wings specifically, right? And I think for the Lakers, one of the things you have to consider, and then, if the Sacramento Kings are willing to trade Keegan Murray, I think that'd be a phenomenal pickup for the Lakers. But I don't think Keegan Murray's contract's tradable at this point. I think there's like a hard deadline of when he becomes available for trade, and I don't think that's until next year. So I don't think you can technically make that trade. But people are saying the Lakers should be going out there and getting a guy like Zach LaVine. And if it's not LaVine, maybe a guy like Sabonis. And I do think Sabonis could benefit the Lakers a lot, but I also look at it in this other instance, which is, if you bring in Sabonis, you're going to have to give him a lot of minutes, which means guys like Jackson Hayes does not play anymore going forward, which means you're going to have to trade some of these guys like Rui Hachimura potentially, Maxi Kleber, and Kleber didn't play yesterday, so it might not matter, but you're going to have to essentially, if you're bringing in Sabonis, figure out how the rotation's going to look going forward. And then at the same time, does Sabonis and Ayton start together? And I think they could technically start together, but then is LeBron then getting kicked down to the 3 spot? And then, it just kind of gets into this, are they athletic enough? Is that a great fit for the Lakers? And also we do got to keep in mind, the Kings are not the only team that's looking to trade some of their stars and looking to kind of rebuild. There's guys like Terry Eason of the Houston Rockets. Some people think it's time for him to potentially get moved. And the Rockets are a really, really, really good basketball team. They have some good pieces. But the Rockets could also benefit potentially from having some shooters added, right? The Rockets are a very athletic team right now. And Terry Eason's very athletic himself, 6'8", very, very, very explosive. He's not the best three-point shooter, although he has gotten better. I think he was shooting like 33, 34% last year, and this year he's shooting 50% or 51%, which, that's not going to stick, right? That'll obviously come down at some point, but he's gotten better as a three-point shooter. And I think for the Lakers, you could potentially benefit, and I think the Rockets could benefit from this as well. I think the Lakers should consider moving a guy like Rui Hachimura and not move him because he's not a good basketball player. I think Hachimura is a great basketball player. But the Lakers also have guys like Jake LaRavia, and I know LaRavia struggled a little bit, but like LaRavia can catch and shoot similar to Rui Hachimura. You don't want to have too many of those guys, and then at the same time, you don't have guys that are athletic. Because right now the Lakers do lack athleticism. I definitely noticed that watching them, and I know a lot of other people recognize this as well. Marcus Smart is not 26 anymore, and I know he's still good. He still hustles, and he still makes plays. But I just think the Lakers have to figure out a way to be a little bit more explosive, offense and defense, but mostly on the defensive side. And I think Terry Eason could be really good. He can catch and shoot. Again, he's improving, not great at catch and shooting, but he is improving. Jonathan Kuminga is another guy that some people are thinking could potentially be traded, although I'm not sure the Warriors are going to actually end up trading him. But some people are saying the Lakers should be calling about him, right? And again, the trades that the Lakers would make, you're not making a trade in which, you're giving up just like bad pieces, right? Like, you're not just dumping salary to dump salary, and you're not going to just give up your first round picks in 2026 and 2028 paired up with like Dalton Connect, and then you're getting like this star caliber player, right? The Luka trade is never happening again for the Lakers. I'm just telling you guys that right now. But I do think the Lakers can go out there and still potentially add some talented players. And I think they should. And, let's just kind of talk about yesterday's game a little bit. I felt like the Lakers played a pretty damn good game yesterday, but they did have some struggles. Jake LaRavia has now struggled in back-to-back games. Yesterday, he was 2 of 8. He played 24 minutes. He was -9. And him and Dalton Connect were the only two guys that were in the minus, right? So Jake LaRavia -9, Dalton Connect -9. And Connect struggled a little bit as well. I almost feel like when LeBron James comes back, I almost feel like Dalton Connect is not even going to be in the rotation at that point because he's just struggled way too much at this point in so many different games. And I'm not saying Connect's a terrible basketball player. I still think he has upside, and I think at some point he's going to develop into a good player, a good role player, I should say. But do the Lakers need to wait 2, 3, 4 years for Connect to develop, or could they pair him up and potentially look to just, make their team a little bit better? And again, I think you just got to think about, Jake LaRavia and Rui Hachimura are kind of similar players. And I think with LaRavia, there might be more upside, especially given he's still super athletic. Or not super athletic, but he's still athletic. He can still, create his own points if he needs to. and he can catch and shoot. And I know Rui Hachimura is better right now. He's more consistent. But the Lakers have pieces, and I think they just got to kind of figure it out as they go forward. In yesterday's game against the Hornets, the Lakers in the first quarter really struggled on the defensive side. They were not able to stop the Hornets. They were outscored. And the Lakers did do a great job coming back. And in the second quarter, they had the momentum. And on the defensive side in the second quarter, they kind of stepped it up. Third quarter really shut things down. In fact, in the third quarter, the Lakers only gave 15 total points to the Hornets. And it was led by Marcus Smart's 3 steals. 3 steals in that quarter. 7 overall steals by Marcus Smart. The guy had a phenomenal game. And the Lakers just stepped up on the defensive side. And they started to just kind of outplay the Hornets. And really, it was Luka Doncic that just kind of went off, right? 38 points yesterday for Luka. 14 of 28. 5 of 15 from the three-point line. The guy was almost unstoppable. And honestly, he shot 50%, 14 of 28. But he shot a lot of heat check type of shots, right? He had multiple three-pointers, he was 7 feet behind the three-point line. Just see if he can hit a three-pointer. He probably had 5 shots that were probably wasted shots just because he was heat checking. But the guy was basically unstoppable yesterday. And it wasn't just in quarter 1 or 2. The guy was unstoppable for the entirety of the game. Luka Doncic won that game for the Lakers yesterday. The guy had a phenomenal game. And, of course, he only had 2 turnovers, which I think was another part of the Lakers being able to win this game. They limited the turnovers. Marcus Smart had 7 steals, obviously benefits the Lakers. He also had 6 assists. So Marcus Smart played a really good game. DeAndre Ayton was okay. I think he struggled a little bit in the second half. I believe he had 6 points in the first quarter, and then he had 8 points the rest of the game, right? The second, third, and fourth quarter. So he struggled a little bit down the stretch, but to his credit, he only shot 10 shots, and he made 7 of those 10, so 70%. He had 3 turnovers, but generally speaking, DeAndre Ayton was okay, right? He had some nice defensive moments. As did Jackson Hayes. Hayes only played in 14 minutes, but Hayes did have a couple of nice. He had a couple of nice plays. He had a block, right? 1 block. It was a key block. He did a pretty nice job being able to play defense, right? Overall, man, the Lakers looked pretty good yesterday against the Hornets. They played a clean game, which is something they haven't done this entire season. I'm going to be honest with you guys, man. Early on in the Hornets game, I thought this was going to be another Hawks type of situation. The Lakers at some point in that first quarter, I believe they were down 10 points. At some point, they may have been. So we'll see what the Lakers kind of do as they go forward, just to kind of wrap up the game summary from yesterday. Jake LaRavia did struggle a little bit. And I think for the Lakers, one of the issues that they're having right now is every guy cannot play a ton of minutes, right? You can't give Jake LaRavia 35 minutes. You can't give him 30 minutes if you're giving Rui Hachimura 35. You can't give Dalton Knecht 18 minutes if Marcus Smart's playing 36 minutes. I think for the Lakers, one of the things they got to figure out when it comes to the rotation is which 8 or 9 guys is going to play consistently. You can bring in Bronny James like they did the other day in the second quarter, and he plays 3 minutes in the second quarter, and then he'll play 8 minutes over the course of the game. Or you can take those 8 minutes and say, hey, Dalton Knecht, we trust you a little bit more. Or Jake LaRavia, we trust you a little bit more. Or maybe it's a guy like Adou, Thiero, where the Lakers say, hey, we trust him a little bit more. I said the Lakers need to make a trade potentially for an athletic wing. Adou Thiero is actually going to make his NBA debut at some point in this road trip. That is according to JJ Redick. Breaking news, JJ Redick says Adou Thiero may make his NBA debut on this road trip. Everyone is coming back, according to Lakers Muse. So Adou Thiero should be back at some point over the next couple of games. And I think this is massive, massive, massive news for the Lakers. Now, look, I don't expect Thiero to play starting minutes. And honestly, he might not even play a whole lot for the Lakers, the actual roster. But the thing is the Lakers need athletic players. They need guys that can run, block shots. They need athletic players that can just be disruptive out there. A guy that can guard multiple positions. I know, you have guys like Jarrett Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt, he's a little limited. He's a good one-on-one defender, but then what does he provide outside of that? Outside of being able to play as a one-on-one defender, Jarrett Vanderbilt's not a great offensive scorer. He's not going to create his own shots. He's not great as a spot-up shooter. He'll hit threes, but he's not great. What does he do other than one-on-one defense? He's not super athletic either. Thiero kind of changes that a little bit. We've already talked about some of the guys the Lakers could potentially add, guys like Eason, guys like Kuminga, Keegan Murray, and that might not happen now. It could be eventually down the line, depending on what happens with the Kings. But guys like Thiero could easily solve that issue for the Lakers right there. He's a guy that could be very, very, very athletic. I want to see this guy actually make his debut, and we'll see when he ends up playing, when he kind of comes back. Very, very excited for him to be able to play. I think he could potentially change how the Lakers feel about the current roster. If he ends up being a good basketball player, and he doesn't have to score 15 points a game, he could score 8 points a game. But everything else that he kind of does, I think that could change how the Lakers kind of approach, even as the trade deadline kind of comes. Some people felt when Thiero was coming out that he was one of the best prospects coming out. And I know he was a second-round pick, but some people actually felt this was one of the best prospects coming out in this class. From an athletic standpoint, from being able to play defense, chase shots, block shots, and you can't really control injuries, right? Especially his injury was a really, really bad injury. But I'm excited to see what this guy can do. Let's wrap it up. Everybody knows at this point, Nico Harrison has officially been fired by the Dallas Mavericks. And this isn't surprising, to be 100% honest with you guys, because, making that trade for Luka, where you traded him away, for the Lakers is great. But for the Mavericks, these guys are struggling now. And I just feel like for the Dallas Mavericks, you're too late on this. And first and foremost, they should have blocked that trade from happening. Right, if you're the owner, I don't know how you let the general manager make this trade. Of course, the owner now is trying to shift the blame, which I'm going to read to you guys what Sham's saying. He's saying the Mavericks are firing Harrison 9 months after the jarring and stunning Luka Doncic trade, a move for which Dumont took accountability and accepted as a mistake in a courtside interaction with the fan on Monday night. So the owner has accepted and essentially taking accountability. But let's be honest, by firing Nico Harrison after he made that trade like less than a year ago at this point, you're basically blaming him, saying that it is his fault. Now, you can take the blame and you can take the accountability or whatever you want. But at the end of the day, if you're firing your general manager, who you allowed to make that trade, essentially, you're shifting the blame and you're trying to tell everybody it's his fault. To me, the Dallas Mavericks, you did obviously add Cooper Flag, right? You trade away your superstar and you get a superstar. That's definitely not fixed, by the way. I'm just telling you guys. That was definitely coincidental. But, the Dallas Mavericks, I think they'll be fine as they kind of go forward. But I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because I do think Nico Harrison, it's a terrible decision to make. But I don't think it's just him that made this. I also do think the owner's responsible for this, for allowing that to happen, right? I'm a scout for the NFL. Some of you guys know this. I know for a fact whenever a team is about to draft a quarterback or whenever a team's ready to trade a quarterback or let a quarterback go, the owner is making that decision. The general manager does not have say in quarterback decisions, right? Like when it impacts a team like that, owner's 100% involved, and it's kind of the same thing here. The owner of the Mavericks allowed that trade to happen. Like Nico Harrison didn't just trade him one day. The owner allowed it to happen, right? He essentially approved it. But we will see what the Mavericks kind of look like as they go forward. They got Cooper Flag, and a lot of people think he's going to be a great basketball player. And he's had some moments this year where he shined a little bit. We'll see if he ends up being solid and if the Mavericks can bounce back. Either way, for the Lakers, man, they're going to be competing for a championship for the next 5 to 10 years. It just depends on how Rob Pelinka continues to essentially attack free agency, attack the draft. And the Lakers don't have a lot of draft picks. In fact, I don't think they have a second-round pick for a couple of years. The Lakers will be competing for a championship, so we'll just see how it kind of goes. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I always appreciate all the support I've gotten from you guys. I see all the comments, appreciate it. Let me know what you guys think, man. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.